Thank you all for being here. Welcome. This month we are highlighting what works, opportunity for all. For those of you who are new to BALLE, we are the fastest growing business alliance of values-aligned entrepreneurs, networks, and local economy funders in North America. We are leveraging the collective voice of this movement to drive new investment, spread the best solutions, and harness the power of local, independently owned businesses to transform the communities where we work and live. Today we are pleased to be joined by Crystal German, who will be moderating the discussion, and Adele London and Jay Badhart-Bowl, who will be sharing their stories about their organizations and strategies they've implemented to drive positive impact in their communities. 5 minutes of the moderated session, and then open it up to questions from the audience. To ask questions, please click the chat icon at the bottom right corner of your screen and type your questions into the chat box at any time during the discussion. In the last 10 minutes, Crystal will select questions from the chat to be put to our speakers. The public webinar will close at 1 p.m. Pacific time, and BALLE champion members are invited to remain in the room for 30-minute private Q&A with the speakers. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our moderator, Crystal German. Crystal is the Vice President of the Minority Business Accelerator and Economic Inclusion at the Cincinnati, USA Regional Chamber of Commerce, a position she assumed in 2008. The organization's efforts to increase the profitability and operational efficiency of high-growth minority firms. Under leadership, these firms have seen double-digit revenue growth, pushing aggregate revenue close to $1 billion. And she manages a $2 million loan pool for growing minority businesses and a local spending initiative that has pumped more than $2.7 billion into the local economy over the last 5 years. Crystal, as well as our other speakers today, are part of the 2014 cohort of the BALLE Local Economy Fellowship. Thanks so much, Crystal. We look forward to hearing from you all today.
Thanks, Lee. So I wanted to begin with setting the stage for the conversation that we're going to have today. And it really is about opportunity for all. So oftentimes I find that the fundamentals of the American society are at odds with itself. And I wanted Adele and Jay to really chime in after I begin my opening remarks. That this American society, that the fundamentals of the democratic society is all about creating opportunity. And not just by being born, you have these equal rights and equal opportunity. But then you have a capitalist society that rewards people based on predetermined measures of productivity. And that those predetermined measures are not necessarily representative of all of the values that exist in the American society. And at times, minorities and low-wealth individuals and other immigrants have a different experience and different values that place them at odds with the system. These factors have a detrimental effect on their ability to prosper and located to the second-class citizenship, which reduces their ability to fully participate. So I'm a chamber, and chamber we call ourselves tilling the soil for our businesses and our entrepreneurs. I'll tell you that the growth isn't experienced at the same rate. In our conversation to talk about how do we create that opportunity for everyone. So with that, I'll start introducing Adele and read her bio. And then Adele, I would love you to talk about what has compelled you to work in this area. So London has worked with entrepreneurs in the micro-enterprise development field in the Greater New Orleans area for over 17 years. Networks Director of Business Development and Market Access Program. She has directed the Good Work Network Connect Works initiative to build the capacity of minority and women-owned contractors, connecting small businesses to millions of dollars in contract opportunities in both the public and private sector. Adele's 8-year term with the Authority of New Orleans Red Loan Corporation, where she managed a micro-loan program fund established to public housing and Section 8 micro-entrepreneurs, at an 5% success rate. She created the FDIC's annual Assets for Economic Inclusion Conference for 5 years for more than 300 small business owners, regional banks, and other small business development service providers. Then after Adele, we will hear from Jay. Jay Badhart-Bowl is a poet, and a proud proud son of the Lakota Nation. He is the president and CEO of the Native American Community Development Institute, based in South Minneapolis, where community engagement, organizing, art, and different other focus. He worked extensively in youth leadership, nonprofit administration, American Indian housing development, and community engagement organizing. He now graduated both the ALA, and I hope I pronounced that right, Jay, Dakota Tribal College and University of Minnesota Twin Cities. He's in the mighty, and I'm going to go, sorry, Jay, Ogla in South Dakota, is also from the Sitting Rock Sioux tribe in North Dakota. He's in Minneapolis home since 2000. Tell us about what compelled you to start this work.
There's been several moments. I wouldn't say there's one compelling moment, but I guess initially my experience as an entrepreneur, I was out of school, and myself and some other fellow entrepreneurs, we tried to get together and start a business. We did, but we ran into so many obstacles with obtaining capital. We all had graduate degrees, we had jobs, we had sound business plan and collab, but still it was really, really hard for us to convince somebody to give us some money for our entrepreneurial endeavor. We eventually did do that, but that experience, I realized that, you know, even with the resources that we had, that, you know, it must be impossible for other folks to attain entrepreneurship, to add capital for their business. So that was probably my first call to action. And then, you know, I've always kind of felt like as an African American, that is really a part of my reclaiming that part of history. You know, that part of our history as African American that African American entrepreneurial history, and a part of part of my family history has always compelled me to examine that. And then again, working with for the Housing Authority of New Orleans, and with the public housing and Section 8 residents who all had ideas, had skill sets, and to start businesses, and that helping them to move their businesses and become successful entrepreneurs and actually access capital. That was another call to action. And then most recently was after Katrina, I was really compelled to come back to the city. After that devastation, I felt absolutely called to come back and help that my city rebuild itself with including everyone. So I guess, you know, there's no one call to action, but, you know, I could.
So you talk about your experience as an entrepreneur, your work experience, and then your experience of just being an African-American woman. Can you relate to any of that?
African-American woman aspect. This call to unity, serve your people, make things better, try new innovative solutions, even when you're being told no all the time. You know, we're the torch bearers, and we have that responsibility. So we have to be creative, and we have to have a network and a support system, and I think that's what BALLE is trying to do. I know they're doing that, and finding good people throughout the country. So I definitely, that resonates with me as well.
So what you have specific calls to actions that are things that prompted you beyond just the all spirit of feeling like you needed to carry the torch?
Mm-hmm. So for me, it was growing up in North and South Dakota, and having disparate environment between white people and Native people. And we hated each other, and it was very oppressive, and it's got a very brutal, violent history, and being rooted in that, and walking in, walking in a native world and walking in the white dominant society is something that I feel like all people of color have to do, and it's something that we have to get good at in order to make things better for our communities. So really, whether it's in a reservation, small town in the Midwest, or in Minneapolis here in the South Side, we really have a Native community that has so much potential and promise, and yet we lack capital, we lack the ability to raise funds to support entrepreneurs, to create businesses and incubators. And so what we've really tried to do, and what I've tried to do personally, is inject my culture, my history as a Native man, and the systems that were used against us. We had to learn how to operate and play politics and try to make things better at the end of the day. And that oftentimes looks like craziness, to be honest, if you're not familiar with a lot of the work or the community members. But it takes a special hand and support system to really kind of tease out these nuances and these opportunities that are available to us. We just have to think of them in creative ways. So for me, that's what really is my call to action, is to make things better. We inherited a community here whose operating system wasn't updated ever. And so we're just trying to, at the Native American Community Development Institute, develop a new operating system that's updated, that is ahead of the curve, and relying on assets, for so long. And a lot of communities of color, we program the heck out of them, and we can deliver services like nobody's business, catering to deficits. So what NACFE has really tried to do is focus on strengths and inherent assets of the community. And from that, we've seen a lot of great growth, a lot of promise, and we've become an award-winning nonprofit organization here in nonprofit land in South Minneapolis and in Minnesota. So we know we're doing something right. There's some magic here, whether it's through creating a cultural corridor that's going to support entrepreneurs, or whether it's going to be creating an art gallery that's going to fund the arts as an economy, entrepreneur accelerators and pop-ups is something that we're really excited to start doing, and doing creative placemaking. Building the infrastructure to support those systems. It just seems like it's an uphill battle all the way, but when you got people pushing you and pulling you along, it definitely helps the work.
And so to talk in a minute about what does that look like? What are your results? How do you measure it? You talked so much organization, but what is new systems? I'm going to want you to go into a deeper dive for that. And Del, I want you to do the same thing. So can you talk a little bit about just how organization, how is good work structured? What are your measures of success? How do you know that you're making a difference in New Orleans, in the New Orleans area for the folks that you're working with?
Good Work Network, we are a nonprofit. We are a 501c3 organization, and we've been around since 2001. And we provide technical assistance, business coaching, community building, market access assistance, and capital access assistance, which is where I pretty much work primarily. And the folks that we work with are primarily African American female entrepreneurs. Minority female businesses is primarily who we work with. Next slide. Since its founding, we've served over 3,500 individuals and helped start over 600 businesses. We're very proud of that. We take what we do very seriously because it's so important to our community to really, since 2005, to re-envision what New Orleans, the business community, is going to look like, and we've been very intentional in that. Our base is 91% African American, 69% female, 67% low-income individuals. So again, like you see from that dashboard there, the folks that we work with are we work in the Central City community, which is largely African American, has a strong history of New Orleans, and we're proud of that. We've had pretty good success, I would say, and we've invested in this area, and we're going to be here. So our mission is really to aid, support, and grow small and micro, because that word small can be misconstrued, businesses, help them to start, grow, and succeed their businesses. Now, that could be from a retail shop, a sandwich shop in New Orleans, a po' boy shop, ice cream retailer, to a construction firm. So we don't particularly work with any particular industry. We work with a number of industries. In this area, we do have we have some industries that we have a good, strong footing in, and that would be in childcare and construction, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later. But we do serve a wide variety of businesses. Basically, our vision is really to grow our community to be one that is an inclusive economy. And if as Jay kind of pointed out, and really is obvious in all communities of color, that we all struggle with this dual economy, and helping people of color, and in the Greater New Orleans area, it's largely African American, that including them into the fabric of the business community, the larger business community, has been challenging. I encourage, we have made some great strides in this area, but do still have a lot of work cut out for us. But that's pretty much what we do. We do a lot of, we have different types of training, which is entrepreneurship training stuff to, your general QuickBooks stuff, but also a good bit of specialized trainings. As you can see from the PowerPoint there, that we do construction estimating to retailer, marketing, operations, childcare, lunch and learns, government contracting, as well as some risk management, insurance, and OSHA type trainings. I tell people all the time, we are not the Titanic, and we respond very, very quickly. So, if we see there's a need or there's some area that we need to develop to help a certain segment, the clients that we serve, if there's something that, salon owners, if we have beauticians that need a certain type of training, that we will respond to that and develop something to help them to achieve whatever goals that they're trying to achieve. So that trainings and services kind of ever evolving, which can be daunting, but at the same time, I wouldn't have it any other way, because we want to be responsive. So that's kind of what we do.
Can you talk about a couple of ways? I know you talked about the number of folks that you serve, and like the number of your trainings and being flexible, but do you have other things that you measure that kind of point to the impact that you're creating?
Well, for impact, I was thinking about I mentioned earlier the child care. And in child care, I guess we made and continue to make a pretty good impact. After Katrina, the child care was absolutely devastated. So we had they decreased from this PowerPoint, you can see, from 275 in the Greater New Orleans areas to 86. So talking about rebuilding a city and you bringing people back in, how do you bring people back in if there's no access to child care, because then nobody can go to work, right? I go to work because I have kids too. So, we saw this as a critical piece. There's a lot of moving parts. You could only imagine when the whole city recovering. But we saw this was as a key place that we could make a significant impact, and we did. We collaborated with some organizations and foundations, and really were able to do the things. As you can see, 465 child care providers receive technical assistance and training. 45 of the centers were provided with child care management and nutrition management software, QuickBooks training, and a creative curriculum training. And those trainings were really specific to those industries. So we sought the talent out there, developed the curriculum. So particularly with that nutrition management, that was a critical piece, because what we found was a lot of the child care centers were not participating in the care assistance, like the food program, as they call it here in the state. And they were leaving thousands, and I mean thousands of dollars on the table because they weren't accessing it, because they did not know how to put in information or didn't have access. They, a lot of the centers, these were a lot of older ladies who not necessarily have the technical experience with computers and knew how to communicate their menus and how to communicate with the state in the way they needed to using this software, so that could actually recap that money. So they were leaving tens of thousands of that. Vendors were struggling already, so that was a very significant impact to their bottom line, and what allowed a lot of those centers to actually stay in business.
So that they weren't providing the food or wasn't providing it, it was just that they couldn't access the system that created. And so we talk about these systems that are out there that leave out people who are actually entrepreneurs and doing a great service and doing great product, but just don't know how to integrate into what's already there.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And so you can only imagine these are primary centers who they were absolutely providing well-balanced, healthy meals to these kids every day, and very committed to that. And they're not accessing the money because, they just said, I don't know how to do it, and, they're so busy trying to keep the center together, and they just did not have the know-how within their center to it. So, we have accountants on staff, so we taught them the software, but we also just do training. And, I know a lot of, organizations do a lot of different training, but the training in and of itself in a silo, we find is not the key. It's afterwards. So, sending somebody there, working with them on the software so they could get familiar with it, so they'll know how to do the reporting and send that in weekly, and know, how they need to do that and manage it and feel comfortable they can do it themselves. So that was really empowering for them, and they were able to gain, that was thousands of dollars that they were not realizing yearly. And so, and these are the centers where, where our low income kids are, those are those centers where, if any, I say God bless them all the time, because I said, everybody is going into child care. It's because they're absolutely called to do it, because they want to, they have a passion for it. And so this was really a definite labor of love, helping them to get back on the ground. And so we actually really made, I think, a significant impact, helping them access grant and loans as well. Because again, these were not centers that had, most of them don't have an assistant. The directors do everything. They're actually teaching sometimes as well as the director. And so, having the time to out the plethora of the forms and everything else that they had to do to access grants and loans to get their centers back to where they needed them to be was really daunting for them, and we were really happy to help them to do that, to access capital to rebuild their playgrounds, to build fences, to get equipment sprinkler systems. You ran the gamut. And so through that, all in all, I think we were able to create over 88 full-time jobs and 22 part-time jobs in these child care facilities, and even help them to move. That was the other part of that. The creative curriculum training was to help to provide training to not just the directors, but also their staff members, so that they could actually move in the quality, what we call is our quality rating system, and participate in that quality rating system, which turns into dollars. Because if you are a 4-star center or a 3-star center, then your center is capable of accessing child care tax credits, and your staff members are able to access these tax credits too, which adds to their salaries, right? So it was really kind of this approach that how can we move the dial seriously in bringing these centers back, but bringing quality care and being able to help these centers actually to not just, survive, but thrive.
So one is that create a solution that not only served a community need of good quality child care that allowed people to go out and either be entrepreneurs or find employment, but it also improved the level that they received. It created sustainable enterprise in terms of the child care. So it was while there are 3 or 4 different programs, the impact is far beyond just helping out one child care center or 2 child care centers or the number of centers. So Jay, I know you have been successful in helping one of your businesses that incubated in our organization. So I would love to hear about that impact and your organization as a whole.
So a little bit of background on the Native American Community Development Institute. We were incubated and started and incorporated as an organization in 2007, and we were aimed at being a community development intermediary, using economic and community development as tools to improve our community at the end of the day, in a lot of different ways. And so what we've kind of molded into is 4 main pillars as an organization. You see we have a small staff there, and we have a lot of different, I like to call our team a team of savants. Everybody kind of geeks out on something different, whether it's transit, community, or economic development, arts, organizing, whatever it may be. I think those different perspectives keep the work fresh. It generates new ideas, and so the 4 main pillars that NACD really stands on are community engagement, bringing community together, because as a tribal people, that was always an inherent strength of ours. And when we started coming into the city, it was sink or swim and capitalistic and individualistic, and that's not how our community members have typically historically oriented. It was very communal and very supportive. And so we had focusing on engaging the community, bringing them to the table, reintroducing them to one another, taking that to the next step further, which is the 2nd pillar of community organizing. How do we really take that communal voice and those relationships and leverage them to help create policies and start creating power economically, politically, in our own communities. And so then we take that communal organized voice, and then we start working on community development, economic development projects in our own community that our residents, our constituents have vision for themselves. And so that's actual physical corridor. The only one of its kind in the country is the American Indian Cultural Corridor, with a half-mile stretch from Franklin Avenue's light rail station, and then it extends west to 11th Avenue. So the green dot on the right is where the corridor starts at a major light rail station, and the Metro Transit organization that runs the public transit system, the rail system, thought that if they put the stop in our community, that economic development and business would just kind of stop, and it didn't for over 10 years. So we actually fundraised $1 one example is we fundraised $500,000 to do an infrastructure improvement project. But this area in the orange is really, can you go back really quick? This area in the orange is really focused in on, and it bookends a lot of history in our community. And so how do we make that a regional destination? How do we create more businesses in this corridor, leveraging one of the most dense and largest American Indian urban populations in the country? How do we use our culture and our arts and our languages as a way to get people to start businesses, to start growing an economy locally? So the first step was creating a blueprint, a visioning document that we created, and you can visit that at nacdi.org, nacdi.org, under the publications tab. And a visioning document, the only one of its kind for our community, the first one, innovative, where it really captured the visions of community, what they wanted, and then also put them a step further and said, what are the strategies you want NACD and the community to work towards these visions, and then how does that look? So we saw things like an art gallery, we saw things like more coffee shops and cafes and businesses and restaurants, and so we use that as the guiding light for a lot of NACD's work. And so you see on the second, the third slide here, at one time, all the properties and the lots in red or blue were all red, and that was essentially American Indian owned land property. Over the years, though, through different boards changing over to non-Indian interests, all those properties started kind of going into the blue color. So we're happy to report that the furthest left on the top, the furthest bottom left sector is now red again. Our community partners just purchased that property, and it has a lot of mixed commercial and retail space there. But really looking at what it looks like now on top, and then down on the second photo, the rendering, is what the community envisioned for itself. You know, really having storefronts in our own area, in this space, that are commercial, retail, housing, and, you know, powwow grounds, convention and hotel center, right at the red light rail station, tribal embassy. And so these are the projects that the community envisioned, and these are the projects that we work on. And so one of those was we actually had to buy our own property. So we used American Indian dollars to purchase our building, and used a native-owned bank to do that, and lending sources, and used native contractors to finish the building and house an art gallery, house a business incubator, which became Powwow Grounds, which is in its 5th year and is really starting to pick up steam and is growing more successful almost every month. And it's really become a regional destination. Our offices are in here, our partners' offices are in here. So being present and visible to community, but also creating new ways that they can interact with one another is the work that NACD really tries to do.
Now, do you have an example of your, like one story that epitomizes the work you guys are doing?
It's all really intertwined with organizing, getting people to the table. When I first moved to Minneapolis in 2000, our Native community, we have one of the largest populations here in the country, but I didn't see them. I didn't see people that look like me. And what I came to learn over the years working in this community is that we've been in plain sight. We don't have a lot of businesses. We don't have a lot of retail spaces that are dedicated to Indian interests. We don't have a lot of opportunity to gain and access capital. So these are shots inside our art gallery. And we realized historically that our communities have always communicated through art. And that was something that had been lost to an urban environment for decades. And so we were fortunate enough to inherit an art gallery, All My Relations Art, that actually serves multiple purposes. You know, talking about building power in our community, you know, we host a lot of discussions, whether they're local, regional, or national, with decision makers and elected officials. But one of the projects that we incubated was the Powwow Grounds Coffee Shop. And this was an opportunity to create a demonstration project for our community and using and leveraging the organizational resources that we had at our disposal, whether that was cash or whether that was technical assistance. And so we recruited a native entrepreneur and said, we will offset your rent if you promise to hire people from our community. And so we did that as he incubated for 3 years, and he was able to get to market rate rent and pay us retail rent. And he still employs young Native high school students and college students to this day. And they really get business experience. They get to work in the events that we host in the gallery. And it's really just this nice symbiotic relationship that we have back and forth. And this loop that this coffee shop was just a dream, and we were able to actually build out the space, incubate a business, give jobs to our community, and he's really doing well for himself, and it's really a nice success story. And so whenever we have events, we have the coffee shop cater for these discussions in the gallery or in the community, and he donates a lot of product and time as well, just because we're all passionate about making this place a better space for our people.
So there's so many things there I want to unpack, but you use the word partner and you use the word community a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And we only have a few minutes left before we want to open it to questions. But what does that look like? I mean, when you say community, you say partners. What does that look like in your community? Who are you leveraging? How are you leveraging them? What conversations? You're other conveners and facilitators. So
Mm-hmm.
how is it impacting your ability to do the work?
We wouldn't be anything without community, and we're a small staff of passionate people that have all these different interests. So we really do a lot of convening, a lot of facilitating, a lot of organizing work. Another example is we were able to have the Minneapolis unrecognized Columbus Day and formally recognized Indigenous Peoples Day in its place. And that was through community. We couldn't do a lot of that organizing work without them. So one of the strategies we're using this year is creating the Twin Cities Indigenous Alliance, which is going to be a cross-sector think tank of doers and creative thought leaders in our community that work in philanthropy, that have their own businesses, that run nonprofit organizations, that are working in all these awesome fields and connecting to corporate opportunities as well, and just trying to create a common agenda. And that's a common theme here in Minneapolis and Minnesota, which is the worst state for racial disparities in the country. And the Black community and the Native community are at the bottom of that barrel. So we really need to start taking ownership and put in a lot of work and continue to fulfill that promise and legacy that our forebears brought to the table in both of those communities. And so leveraging the Chamber of Commerce here locally, the American Indian Chamber of Commerce, and making sure that we keep the money in the community, because in other parts of Minneapolis, the dollar will rotate 7 to 10 times. And here in our community, it comes in once and then it leaves. And so how do we create places that will hold the dollar, that will translate the dollar, and provide more promise in the future? And we have to do that through creative thinking. And the normal nonprofit structure is inherently unsustainable, and you're always asking for money. So looking at ways to cooperatively own an organization or business that would incubate more businesses and accelerate these new ideas and innovations that we're starting to bubble up here in our community is something that we're really proud of and excited to do.
So co-opting the systems that are in place and making their own.
Yeah, because this system wasn't made for us. It wasn't designed for us. The game wasn't designed for people of color to win. And that is just a sad reality that we have to deal with, and we have to learn how to translate. Oftentimes, our organization, myself, my staff, have to translate from community and take that message to, power structures and institutions, and let them know what they want to hear, and then we have to translate that back to our community. And so really being flexible and nimble with conveying, these opportunities, whether they're with NACD or the Chamber of Commerce or whether they're with the county or city, is that we have to play, and we do have to co-opt it.
I'll let you jump in here because I can only imagine that post-Katrina, there's a lot of opportunity with that have been in place for hundreds of years. And what it looked like, talk about building partnerships. What does that look like when you talk about adapting both systems and new systems post-Katrina that, to empower your community?
As what Jay was saying is right on point, that have to be creative and absolutely nimble. We are in this place of trying to communicate opportunities and how to access opportunities to communities who have, been in large part always excluded. The conversation now that, everybody's using the term inclusive towards a more inclusive economy. Well, that means is because traditionally there's been a system of exclusion, and that absolutely is the case in New Orleans. Building trust within a community when you're talking about people who are in large part operating outside of the what it would be called the established business community, but operating in the informal economy, a guy with a truck and he's care for his kids, his grandkids, and taking care of everybody and done everything but operated in large part in an informal way. And how do we move that person or folks like that into an established business community and have the established business community open the door? So it's really been kind of juggling that because you're actually trying to build this bridge between these two communities that exist together. So when you say community, we have to realize that it's all of us. It's not them and then them, us and them. It's all of us together. And I took the liberty just to give some stats about New Orleans, because to say community, what is that? And who are we working with? And what are we faced with? And 37% of all the households here live in poverty, and that's across the board. 24% have zero or negative net worth. The FDIC found that 38.7% of New Orleans residents are underbanked. So roughly almost 40% New Orleans residents, and again, that's a difference of race. But even more importantly, statistic came out where they said 52% of all African American males, between I think it was 16 and 64, were employed or not even looking for work, or not in the labor market, meaning they were either incarcerated or just not actively looking for work. So say more than half of African American males who are of the age of work are not there. It's devastating to the community. And so we have established some programs and things to engage folks who have records, because you have to. We have to be responsive. We're saying that we're trying to make an impact. If you have a large African American male population with records to access a job, then what does that? That's a recipe for disaster, right? If you don't have any opportunities for them. So, and entrepreneurship is absolutely one of those options. And I'm proud to say we've definitely made some strides there with helping them to start businesses, establish business, and actually do pretty well. This has actually led us to do some advocacy work, even though in the work of doing and empowering entrepreneurs, you run to these roadblocks that are ingrained within the social fabric of community, whether it be economic, political structures. Oftentimes there is some advocacy work there that needs to be done to bring down different barriers and obstacles that are in the way to that empower, that keep the folks that we're helping accessing these opportunities. And so those, when we talked earlier about call to action, that's absolutely a call to action for me and our organization. And it's a task, but we're up for it. Your organization has to be, like Jay said, nimble. And when I say nimble, I mean you have to react to what the needs of your community is. So, overcoming those types of obstacles can be daunting, but you absolutely have to be responsive. So I think, whether it be in Minneapolis, looking in New Orleans, here in New Orleans, dealing with communities of color, I think you see a lot of the same obstacles there and a lot of the same issues. And I'm just glad that we're having the conversation and looking at what each of our communities is doing, so that it give us some fresh ideas, think about things in new ways, so we can bring it back to our communities and the folks that we serve. But we've had conversation with the established business communities, anchor institutions, and say, that's not just the African American male problem. It's your problem. It's all of our communities' problem, and making the whole realize, to embrace the whole, that we are all in the same boat. We are all together, and people to making realize that bringing down those walls and those barriers actually strengthens our community.
So I want you and I want Jay, both of you, to kind of, if you could come up with one sentence or one statement that says to mainstream, so again, I work at a regional chamber where our membership is largely medium-sized, and to your point of small versus medium, so our, when we say medium-sized, we're talking about, $100 million or more in revenue, companies, mostly majority owned, so very small minority companies in our membership. So what would you say to me, I should say to the membership here, about why it is important to help those American males who are currently unemployed and have difficulty finding employment because of a criminal record or because of something that happened when they were 16 that put them in a position not to finish high school or not to get a technical or a college education. Will you tell them about why it's important to support entrepreneurship for African American females, low-income people? What do you say to them about why it's important to create opportunities for everyone, and it's not about a us or a them? If you had to give one or two sentence statement that I could say and then kind of drop the mic where they would get it, what would that be? Yours, and then Jay, you're not off the hook. I want yours after Adele.
Oh goodness! Oh, drop the mic.
Mic statement.
One word, one sentence or one word? One sentence?
No, one sentence. I give you one, maybe two sentences.
Oh, all right. Okay. So go you. We all in the same gang. Can we all just get along? And that's a hard one. I'll give you a second on that one. But yeah, I guess it's put that in sentence, in that it's not them, it's a we, and if they're serious about building community and is still serious about making an impact in the world, and realizing that this is not just their problem, that it's a public safety issue, it's a health issue. It's so bigger than black versus white. It's so bigger than that, and that we have to realize that we are our brother's keeper.
Okay. Jay, what do you have?
I dropped my
Mike.
I dropped it right.
Late Minnesota Senator Paul Wellstone famously said, when we all do better, we all do better. And I think that when the local economy is able to include market sectors that it doesn't currently reach in, whether that's the Native community, the Native dollar, or the Black dollar. A lot of businesses are missing out on those opportunities, either as employees or as customers. And that's that notion of when we all do better, we all do better, end of the day. And I dropped the mic.
Now, what is the late senator? I didn't catch the name.
Wellstone.
Okay.
I'm right. That's going to be part of my drop the mic ending statements from now on.
All right.
So with that, I think we're going to open it up for questions from the chat box. So as questions come in, are there, ending comments, things that you want to lead off the chat session with, either Elle or Jay?
When I was just kind of going on about all of I feel like I left on a negative tone, all of the bad stats going on here, but there's so much going on here, solidly, but a positive, really. There's a lot of redevelopment going on downtown, around town, and billions of dollars here, and I've been doing this a while, and have never seen the engagement from both ends, and that I really feel like there's a genuine on both larger established businesses to connect with small minority women firms to create opportunity, to create synergies there. I think that a lot of the nonprofit as well as in the public sector collaborating and joint forces has really kind of laid the framework for it. But I do think that it's a matter of will, too. The will of the people actually, is a large part of that. And I do see that the will is changing, that the winds are changing, and I'm extremely hopeful. So I wanted to definitely convey that the wind changing, and I hope that New Orleans will be one of inclusion. And we'll have a story to tell. After the test is the testimony. So we're still in the test phase, but we're moving towards testimony. Bring up my Baptist side.
Well, we'll take your Baptist side, and I've always found you to be positive, so I didn't think of it as a negative at all.
Okay, good.
Do you have anything that you want to make sure you put out to everyone? And a reminder, you can just hit the chat box and send questions our way.
Yeah, chat us up. We're very talkative and would be happy to answer anything. I think the thing for me is that is the thing that always resonates in my head when I wake up or when I put my head down to sleep at night is I can't settle, because we've settled for so long with just scraps and with just the bare minimum, and we need to fight back. We need to take control of our dollars. We need to leverage our dollars. And really be creative about it. And like I said, the system wasn't made for us to succeed, so how do we make it work for us in other ways? And it's about taking those risks, and it's about growing our edges as a community, as an organization, staff members. How do we explore the unknown, where that new next idea is going to come from? Because we already know the math world, and the math world hasn't produced meaningful results, and it's not moving the needle, like Adele and Crystal were saying. So how do we grow our edges as we explore the unknown, and sometimes be willing to fall off that edge, but all for a good cause and with good intentions and being authentic in the work and in the community.
So we do have a question from Elias. He loved, Jay, your idea about creating a think tank. Do you recommend start one specific project or with a group that does an overall survey of conditions in order to find the biggest priorities?
What we're doing, yeah, we have the thin slice victory. It's like, how do you eat an elephant, right? Like with the Native community at the bottom of the barrel and all these disparities, so it can just get too overwhelming. So you eat an elephant one bite at a time. And so what we're going to start doing is thin slicing victories, getting this think tank together of doers. And that's how movements happen. You have to have doers in the community. You can't always rely on titles and job descriptions. It's about the people that get work done. So that's who we're targeting. And we're going to start with probably a legislative agenda as the Twin Cities Indigenous community. What do we want from our state elected officials? And those things are going to include a large portion of the economy and how that impacts and interacts with our community. Another thing might be to start creating using the think tank to leverage corporate involvement in community. We have an inordinate amount of big corporations from Best Buy to Target to General Mills to 3M located right here, but the communities that are really suffering, they're not connected at all. So how do we start reaching out and creating little instigators and agitators of change in those major institutions and start taking those dollars back and bringing them into the community? Something like that is that's what I'm talking about, and we don't want to necessarily get too far ahead of ourselves, but we do have to have a vision, and I think this table is going to be able to start that work, and I'm excited about it. So yeah, it's all we can do is just try, because no one else is going to do it. So let's just try.
Spirit and Adele's spirit. Every time I talk to you guys, I feel more enthusiastic about this work because it's hard work, and with being flexible and nimble and trying to co-op a system or create a new system or gather people together. So you make it sound so easy, we're just, push our edges. And I know a lot of people in my community where pushing their edges is not an easy thing. And so, but like you said, all we can do is try.
I was just listening to Jay, and he was talking about those edges, and it's like, how do you get the edges to connect? Is sometimes, because we're dealing with so much the distrust, like you were saying, the Best Buys and these big anchor institutions that, it's the Plymouth Rock landing on us kind of thing. They're there, but there's no connection of folks that's in those communities. And, it is daunting because, it could be challenging to get the folks that are in those communities. Is not just getting them to open the door, but getting them to even try to look for the door, to try to get them to actually seek the door, to seek the opportunity, and not just say, that they'll never let me in or they'll never let me get an opportunity, blah, 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 blah. But you're getting them to build the trust there on both sides. So it's, it's a challenge, though. But we kind of have that same situation here too, Jay, where you have these large institutions here and connecting the folks in the community to those folks. You definitely have to be creative, and you have to be ready to roll your sleeves up and get it done because the connect has to be made.
So close to the hour, and I think both Adele and Jay, you have done a great job of wrapping up the conversation. So not have we talked about the challenges, but we're leaving on a high note of how to overcome, what we need to do to be flexible and to be nimble. That this is hard work, but we're full of passion for creating these opportunities because if we don't, then we will all suffer for it, because as one goes, so does the entire community. And as the late senator said, we all do better. When we all do better, we all do better. And so with that, we'll turn it back over to Leslie to transition us to the next piece.
Great. Thank you, Crystal, so much. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Adele. Really enjoyed hearing about your work and the impact that you're having. And, how you're trying to move the needle in your community. So really appreciate all of your stories. Thank you all for participating today. Wanted to let you know that our next webinar is April 16th, and that will be on community capital. And we look forward to you joining us for that conversation as well. If you really like this topic, you can also visit our website, and we have webinars from prior years on prosperity for all if you want to continue to do a deeper dive into this conversation. And at this point, we'd like to invite our champion members who are on the line to stay on so that you can have your one-on-one Q&A with the speakers today. And then again, we thank the rest of you for joining us, and we hope to see you again in April.